This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Ben Settle, super practical.
I'm not telling people to have a mistress. I'm teaching you, learn the lesson from the people who have a mistress, because there's many business lessons that apply.
Pious.
There's a part in the book of Revelation where Jesus says, I want you either hot or cold. I'm spewing lukewarm churches out. And I think it's a good way to look at your list.
Romantic to his very core.
Once in a while, I'll give my girl a present, like a Snickers bar or something.
And totes tender.
If someone asks you to walk on eggshells, smash the eggshells and let the chips fall wherever they may.
Adored by feminists everywhere.
It takes a strong woman to admit when she's wrong.
Not a judgmental bone in his entire body.
I look at all the free information people give just on Facebook and I go, what a bunch of time hose.
Has a PhD in armchair philosophy.
In the land of dumbasses, the smartass is king.
You'll never meet a more sensitive guy.
If you really care about people, you shame the hell out of them. This is Ben Settle of the bensettle.com podcast. Jonathan, you and I have not talked in a while because we had that falling out where
I made you.
We were fighting.
What happened to the NDA? You're not supposed to be talking about this shit.
Oh, that's right. Okay, my bad. It's damn good to hear your sweet, sexy voice. I have to admit. No, the reality is that Jonathan and I often take months off where we don't record anything, and everyone knows we're far ahead on these. So I really haven't talked to Jonathan in a while. So on behalf of the audience, Jonathan, we're all happy to hear you again. And on that note, all right. So I got to thinking about some things last year. Now that we're in January, right? It's January. Okay.
It is.
Whatever month we're in right now.
You're in December. You're in February.
No, we're in January. we are. I hope. Either way, I got to thinking about how it's not like this is some big epiphany or anything, but it's true. Like everything I say, and that is, I can teach you all the tricks. I can teach you all the tips. I can teach you all the tactics. I can teach you all the principles. I could teach someone everything I know about email. I can teach them everything I know about copywriting, marketing, whatever it is I think I know. I can teach people about this stuff all day long. But if they don't have the mental game in place, if they're not ready for success, if they're not ready to do what needs to be done, none of that stuff's going to matter. And Jonathan, I believe this is why there's such an epidemic of refunds, and even people who don't ask for refunds, they never do anything, right? It has to do with being taken out of a comfort zone and that sort of thing. So we're going to do a two-part. This is going to be a two-part because it's too long to do in just one show, because I just don't want to sit here for an hour. We already tried the hour show thing. It didn't really work for us very well. It's like depressing. So this will be two-part. I'm going to go over kind of what I call cycle traits. And this is just cycle traits is just kind of something I threw together because I was writing about this for AWAI when we were promoting 10-Minute Workday last time. And I remember thinking, this is the kind of stuff I really would prefer people know before they buy anything from me. Instead, everybody comes in, they're all half-cocked, they get inspired by an email or something, and they're going to take over the world just to subscribe to email players or buy one of my products. And I'm sure this applies to everybody else's products they buy too. And then they proceed to do nothing because they're just not ready to take a step forward. They're comfortably numb, however you want to say it. And I'm going to hope my job today and next week is to make you uncomfortably numb and to hopefully spur a little action out of people. So on that note, Jonathan, unless there's anything you want to add before I jump into this?
Let's rock and roll.
Okay. All right. So here's the first thing. It's kind of a concept that there's nothing new about what I'm about to say of any of this stuff, by the way. I know people like to go around thinking that when they teach something that's brand new, there's nothing new under the sun, and this is no different. Way back in my MLM days, which was, a long time ago, like 20 years ago or something, I remember listening to this guy, Tom Big Al Schreider, who is a, hardcore network marketer, one of the most brilliant network marketers out there. And he's also a brilliant direct marketer and a good copywriter and all that. And he was one of the co-founders of the company I was in at the time. And I remember one of the talks he gave, where he talked about how everybody has like a built-in thermostat in our psyches, right? Like in our minds, like it's a comfort zone. So imagine that your thermostat is set at, I don't know, $25,000 a year. Jonathan, let's say that all you made was $25,000 a year. And this is what you're used to, what you're comfortable with. Your thermostat, your internal thermostat is set for $25,000 a year, which means if you were to go a year where you only made $20,000, you would automatically, without anyone having to tell you anything, you would automatically do whatever it takes to get back to where you're comfortable at $25,000 a year. Your thermostat would go back up to that because you're comfortable. You're cold at $20,000 a year. You're freezing, right? Like it's like if your house is cold, you're going to turn the heat on. You're going to start a fire. You're going to do whatever you have to do to get it to where you're not cold. Well, that's how it is with people when it comes to finances. And conversely, let's say you make $25,000 a year, Jonathan. Okay. And I know you're almost there, the $25,000 a year, but I'm not trying to give you a complex or anything. But let's say you suddenly make $100,000 a year. Well, that's way too uncomfortable. And so what you'll do unconsciously, and nobody's going to sabotage you or anything, you're just going to do it to yourself, is you're going to do whatever it takes to lose all that money and get back to where you're comfortable at $25,000 a year. This is a very, very popularly taught concept, but it's very true. And this is one of the things people kind of got to get their minds wrapped around when it comes to implementing anything you're going to learn about marketing. Forget my stuff, but any stuff you do, you might be gung-ho to do all this stuff, but if your thermostat is set at a certain number, I don't care how many books you read, I don't care how many times you listen to a product or whatever, I don't care about any of that, you're going to sabotage yourself. So you have to go in knowing what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with and where you want to be. And for example, Jonathan, I can tell you right now, I would be very uncomfortable being a billionaire. That's just not for me. And all the attention something like that brings on me, I'd be very uncomfortable. I would do everything in my power to give all my money away to you, is what I would do. Because I care about you, Jonathan.
Sounds lovely.
I care about my comfort zone too. But we're all like this. We all have a thermostat like that, where we're comfortable and where we're not comfortable, when we're hot, when we're cold, however you want to say it. And so knowing that going in will make every time now when you start investing in products, whether it be my products or anyone else's, you'll know this. You'll know why you're not mailing data. For example, let's say you're an email player subscriber, anyone listening to this. The 5 people that listen to our show. Let's say you're email player subscriber. If you don't go in understanding this, if there's a reason you're not writing emails every day, probably, if you're procrastinating. There's a reason why you're not building your list if that's something you're procrastinating on. There's a reason why you're not applying this stuff and you're not writing emails at all, much less daily. It's because you're probably not comfortable making the money that writing daily emails is going to bring you. Because Jonathan can attest that it will start making you sales when you start mailing daily the way I teach. It just does. Assuming you have a list of people who are receptive to whatever you're offering. It's not the information. It's not procrastination that's the problem. It's the thermostat. If you are uncomfortable where you're at because you make X amount of money, you're just going to start writing. You're going to apply the information. You're going to write the emails. You're going to start making all the sales until you get to the point where you're uncomfortable. And then you'll probably have a little resistance. You have to get through it and all that. And that's fine. But that's how it works. So to me, this is one of the most important things that anybody can learn coming into business. In fact, Jonathan, I almost want to like make it mandatory that people understand this before they even buy a product from me. I wish I could force them to like have to learn this stuff because I don't want them otherwise. I don't want a bunch of people who are just going to sit there and stay mired in misery and all this when they could easily get out of it if they just got their mind on straight. So now this leads to the next psycho trait I want to talk about. Let's say somebody's like, well, Ben, I don't know how to get this thermostat higher. I don't understand. I grew up where, I had a parents who always kept me down. You ever see the movie Rudy?
Yeah.
Jonathan? Remember, like, he has this goal, this mission to, like, play for Notre Dame and all that. And his whole his dad's always bringing him down, saying, look, we get you a good job here. Your family's going to look after you, the good factory job and all that, because that's where he was comfortable. But Rudy was not comfortable doing that. And that's why he did the great things he did, because he was uncomfortable. Well, the reason why he was able to get over all those odds, and from what I understand, that's a true life story. I don't know how much of it was dramatized or not, but basically a true story, was attitude. Now, Jonathan, have you ever heard the Earl Nightingale program, Lead the Field?
Bro. Let me just take 1 second and repeat that. Lead the field. After you told me about that the last time, I bought it, and I've listened like 6 times since then. It is amazing.
It's great. And the funny thing is the more successful you are, like the better it is. And it like the more it sticks in your head and all that. I mean, to me, that is one of the best. Just that program will get anyone's mind on straight.
Dude,
Yeah.
That part with the acres of diamonds, and doing the work and integrity, like that whole program is gold. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, I love it. You're welcome, Jonathan. I'm glad to have assisted you in helping raise your thermostat by recommending
up to $10 a day now.
to $10. You'll be doing $26,000 a year by the time I'm done with you. Okay, but the first lesson in that is what he calls the magic word, which is attitude. And if you listen to any Earl Nightingale stuff, Strangest Secret, Lead the Field, whatever his other programs are, attitude comes up over and over and over and over because, as he says, your environment is a reflection of you. Now, I know that there are people who are going to listen to that and say, well, what about someone in prison? Is that their environment? Well, let's say they're innocent in prison, right? Like they got screwed by a DA or something, which happens all the time, unfortunately. Well, okay, we're not talking about that. We're talking about, just regular circumstances here, regular people. Your environment is a reflection of you. So, for example, if all you are getting are cheap customers who complain about price and who are whining and need hand-holding all the time, chances are you are a cheap customer who just whines about price and nickels and dimes and needs hand-holding all the time too, because we don't attract what we want, we attract what we are. And our environment is what we are. It doesn't mean it's an instant transformation. Like if you get your attitude, like tomorrow everything changes, but it does happen quick. And this is another thing. Like if you're going to buy any of my products, especially, you're going to have to come in with the right attitude, or there's nothing I can do to help you. Just like if your thermostat is set too low and you're not willing to get it up, if your attitude is really set really low and you're always like just miserable and all this, I can't help you. I really can't. Nobody can help you until you get your attitude right. So, Lead the Field has a whole section on that. You're right. I forgot I even recommended that on the show, Jonathan, but I'm glad you reminded me. But attitude is like a huge deal. It shows in your copywriting. It'll show in your emails. And, people will say, well, Ben, what about you? You're like this crotchety guy and all. Yeah, but it's okay. It's okay because at the end of the day, I still have my thermostat set high and I'm still trying to help people and I'm helping myself. That just makes me happy. Being crotchety makes me happy. And I tend to attract people like Jonathan into my life who are crotchety and mean and cruel too. So we're all happy with this stuff because we have the right attitude, Jonathan. So attitude.
Nice.
Attitude is everything. Okay, so the next thing, and you bastard, you stole my thunder a little bit on this, but I'm gonna forgive you because I have the attitude of forgiveness. That is what I have.
Oh, now I see your notes. Oops.
It's okay because we're talking about Lead the Field, and this is Earl Nightingale tells this story all the time of the acres of diamonds, right? Now, it's very important for people to realize, to listen to this story. I'm just going to paraphrase because I'm not going to spend all day on it. And then understand that you have to start applying this to your life in every possible way, not just your marketing, but in everything else. So Russell Cromwell, I think that's how you say his name, Cromwell, wrote this book in the 1800s, I think, called Acres of Diamonds. And I believe it was based on a real story. At least this is what I've been told. And it was about an African farmer who had been hearing about all these diamond mines being discovered around the area. And so, of course, he suddenly started seeing dollar signs. He goes, okay, I want to find some diamonds. This is what I want. That became his mission, to find diamond mines. And so he sells his farm, which from my understanding was probably a pretty successful farm already. And, certainly not I don't think it was in poverty or anything. And he goes off looking for diamonds and he proceeds to never find any diamonds, gets very depressed and kills himself by throwing himself into a river. Now, meanwhile, back at the farm he sold, the guy who bought his farm was taking a walk and he found a huge diamond in a creek on the property. And then I guess a few weeks later or whatever, he realized he had one of the country's, if not the biggest, one of the biggest diamond mines in the entire country already on that farm. And so the guy who sold the farm had what he wanted. He just never bothered looking around. So I'm going to give a real life story of somebody who I like to tell the story because it's not only because it's real, but because I had a hand in it and I can give myself some props. Email player subscriber Stephanie Arroyo. She I was helping her with launch a product and all that. And I started talking to her about her, just her background and everything, for email ideas and that sort of thing and copy ideas. And she went to law school and she worked for a law firm and for a personal injury lawyer, which, you have a lot of miserable people coming in with broken necks and all this stuff. And, some of these people are in a lot of pain. Now, what she sells is she teaches people how to use personality typing. In other words, not just Myers-Briggs, but just personality typing. If somebody's a feeler, if someone's a thinker, whatever, if they're intuitive, if they're not, and if they live in the moment and all this other stuff. It's well beyond what I'm going to talk about here. But that's what she teaches people how to do. And she shows you how to apply that to make more sales in your business, to close more clients. So for example, I mean, an extroverted person talking to an introverted would-be client is going to talk themselves right out of the sale almost every time if they don't know how to type that client without making them take any tests or whatever. I mean, she just knows how to do that. She knows how to type someone just by talking to them within a few minutes. And so that's what she does. And I remember asking her about this, and she goes, I go, have you ever used this? Did you ever use this ability, this talent you have? Did you ever use it, in law school or when you were working for the lawyers and all that? And she goes, well, yeah, one time I used this to talk someone off a ledge. Like someone was literally suicidal who came in, and she used personality type, just what she knows, just by talking to the guy. And she understood how to communicate with this person and put them in a better frame of mind, and, so they didn't kill themselves. Well, I'm like, okay, everybody stop. Okay. It's almost like if it was a movie or something, I would have pushed the pause button. I would have told everyone in the room to shut the hell up. I said, look, that is a diamond, right? That story is a diamond. She can use that in email. She can use that in her copy. I'm having her use it in her sales letter, it's like as a sidebar story, as proof of what she teaches isn't just the usual crap that you find online and all that. That is an example of a diamond in her own acreage there that she didn't even know she had. She was out looking for diamonds everywhere else, like everyone else pretty much does. We all do this, unfortunately. It's something you got to be conscious of. We always think that the bright, shiny object over there, whether it be Facebook or whatever it is, whatever the new thing is it. And yet we all have email that all have an autoresponder. And how many people don't mail their list because they're too busy on Facebook jerking off to whatever the newest bright, shiny object is, right? And yet people like me and Jonathan, we're just mailing our lists every day, making sales, using the diamonds in our own acreage, finding diamonds instead of getting seduced by the guru casino with the bright lights and all that. So this is important because this is another mindset thing. You have to start thinking you have assets. It could be mental assets, it could be physical assets for certain people, Jonathan, like you and me. We have certain physical assets that we use, but we don't talk about. And I'm going to get in trouble on that one. I'm going to either that or just maybe it's a sock. I don't know. But we all have this. We all have diamonds, and you have to start learning where they're at, and you have to look back into your own thing. And, this is especially true for people who got to write copy for themselves. They have a hard time doing it because they don't understand how to find the diamonds in their own backyard. But that's important. So, and then I'm going to end on this next one, and then we'll pick up with more psycho traits next time. And that is being afraid of failure. Being afraid of failure is a very common thing. And it's based on a whole lot of things, actually, like lack of confidence and not really specializing in something, and, probably bad wiring from childhood and all this.
Yeah.
But people are afraid of failure, and that stops them from doing things. So I know someone who I've helped I've helped certain people, Jonathan. I'm not completely, anti-people. Sometimes I'll help people out that I know and everything. And I was helping this person kind of get their act together so they could launch a product. And I remember that they never did it. They never launched anything, like for months. Nothing was launched, and everything was done. Everything was laid out for them. There's no way they could not do it. I mean, I told them exactly what to do in what order, and nothing ever got done for several months. And when I asked this person why that was the case, this person told me because, they're afraid it's not going to work. And so they're naturally procrastinating.
Wow.
So this is really common. This is another reason people aren't sending their daily emails out. Email player subscribers, Jonathan, I know several of them. Okay, I know several of them who have all the ability they need. They've read 20 issues. They've read the email player's playbook back and forth. They can probably quote it to me if they wanted to. But they still haven't started yet because they're scared of failing. Oh, what if I send an email and it doesn't work? Or what if I send an email out and I get yelled at? Or what if I send it, nobody wants my product? They think it's failure, but it's not failure. The only way you can fail is to do nothing. It's the only way you can fail is to do nothing. If you don't do anything, you are a failure. Okay. If you do something, you're not a failure.
Yeah.
It's simply a result, whatever happens, right?
Data.
It's just a result. It's not failure if it doesn't work, if you tried. It's just a result. So that's another thing people have to get through their thick skulls, Jonathan, is if they have a fear of failure, they have to admit it and they have to confront it. And I like to tell this story from an old comic book. It's an old Batman comic book. Is when at the time the new Robin, Tim Drake, was supposed to become the new Robin, but he wasn't ready to be fighting in the field yet. Batman tells him to stay back, stay home, stay in the Batcave, don't come try to help me, as he goes and confronts the Scarecrow, who makes people scared by spraying like toxins on them, makes them see their worst enemies, their worst fears. And Robin finds out, or Tim Drake finds out, he wasn't Robin yet, he finds out that, Batman's walking into a trap. He has to go help him. And he knows this is going to ruin his chance of ever being a Robin, but he has to go do it. He ends up confronting the Scarecrow, who does have Batman like tied up and is like sprayed him with fear gas and all this, and he's incapacitated. And the Scarecrow ends up spraying Tim Drake with the same stuff, and he starts seeing his worst fears. And he has this thought, he has this epiphany. He's like, I might be scared, but I can still act. And he ends up beating the Scarecrow because he's not afraid. He was afraid, but he could still act. Just because you're afraid doesn't mean you can't act. If you're afraid of failure, that doesn't mean you can't act. That's the only way to fail is to do nothing. And this goes for business, it goes for life, it goes even in like martial arts and self-defense. Like they'll tell you the only wrong thing you can do is nothing. That's like just standing there and getting your ass kicked. That's the only thing you can do wrong. So that's it for this time, Jonathan. We'll dive into a few more next time and round it out. And in the meantime, that's all I got.
All right.
That's it.
That's a wrap for another bensettle.com podcast. We'll be back in your earbuds next week. Thanks for tuning in.
You've been listening to the bensettle.com podcast. To download yourself a free issue of Ben's prestigious $97 per month email players newsletter, which is going to show you 24 ways to write emails people eagerly read, click, and buy from, head on over to www.bensettle.com. Off you go. You know it makes sense.
This is the podcastfactory.com.